Paranormal Pete, and I'm on a journey to seek answers to the questions that have crossed all of our minds. What happens to us when we die? Is there an afterlife? I'm a regular guy who discovered the gift of psychic mediumship in my 30s. My passion for history and the unknown have put me right here, right now. My mantra for anything paranormal is, we don't know much and anything is possible. Join me as we find our way through the stories, evidence, and experiences of the paranormal and beyond in search of answers, even if that leads to more questions. Are you with me? Welcome, everybody, to the Paranormal Pete Show. I'm your host, Pete Orbea. We're here on WLTK-DB.com. Make sure you go to the website, and it's an adventure to get through the website and see all the cool stuff going on there. This is episode 95 of this show. Yahoo! 5 more to episode 100. And I'm so happy to be a part of this station for the past, I guess it's 2.5 years now. There's so many great shows on the station, and I encourage you to check them all out if you can. We have a new thing on our website where you can sync the station calendar with your calendar. So you can find out, you'll see every show that's coming up, so you won't miss your favorite show. And if you can't catch live shows, like, you know, most people who are adulting, we have a really extensive archive, and on Podbean and on the website, you can catch the audio version of each show. But again, it's WLTK-DB.com. And very excited for tonight's guest, paranormal investigator and author Joe Teeples. I mentioned in previous weeks, he's one of my favorite paranormal investigators out there. I just love how he does his work and his approach, and an overall great guy. So excited to have Joe on tonight. We'll bring him on here in just a minute. I want to give a big shout out to station owner and host of Haunted Voices, Todd Bates, he's always got this ship running the ones and twos for us. And shameless promotion here, he's got a book out called The Haunted Voice, so make sure you check that out, get a copy of that. But thanks, Todd, for all you do and growing the station. I think we have like 28 shows now on the station, so there's a ton of content ranging from cryptids to self-healing to true crime. So a lot of great stuff all week long. And I think we've even gone into the weekends. We ran out of time during the weekdays, so now we're even running into the weekends there. There's a show called The Producer Show. I think it's on Sunday, so check that out. There's more shows coming on as well. So I think there's a new one coming out March 15th, Haunted Places in 60 Minutes. So you want to check that out. It debuts on March 15th. I've got a Ghost Walk coming up, Ghost Walk tour coming up March 18th, and it's a 3-hour history tour with all the ghost stories here in historic Port Gamble, which is in Puget Sound, if you didn't know. It's a lot of fun to do the tours. This is my 13th season doing the tours, and it's still as fun as the first season that I did them. So come check that out. And I've got Special Investigation coming up in April as well as another Ghost Walk. So go to portgambleparanormal.com to see the dates and get tickets. I've got an event coming up March 16th, so a week from this Thursday. It's a virtual mediumship demonstration with Debbie Romero from Transcend with Debbie. We're teaming up 7 p.m. Pacific time to do like a virtual gallery reading. It should be a lot of fun. Gallery readings are always a lot of fun. They can be very impactful. But the fun part is you never know who shows up to say hello during the reading. So you can go to my website, portgambleparanormal.com, or go to transcendwithdebbie.com, and you can get tickets through Eventbrite for that. And so that's coming up March 16th. I'm also in May, part of an event with Transcend with Debbie. It's to benefit Mission 22, which is mental health for veterans, mental health support for veterans. and it goes from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. And there's a bunch of different mediums on, all for about 15 minutes each. And I think I'm on at 1:45, I believe, during that. So go to transcendwithdebbie.com for info on that. But excited to be a part of that. Even closer than May, I've got the Oregon Ghost Conference coming up. I'm really excited to attend that. That's in Seaside, Oregon, March 24th through the 26th. And I'll be speaking on Friday of the event on the 24th. And it's going to be a really fun presentation, I hope. But it's kind of exploring how the dead affect us, the living, and vice versa. How are we affecting the dead? How are we affecting spirits and ghosts, whether it be in investigations or through mediumship, or we don't know that they're there, but how could we be affecting them? So it's an interesting thought and topic, and I'm excited to put that together and bring that to the Oregon Ghost Conference. Go to OregonGhostConference.com and you can get tickets. Fun places to investigate. There's a place called the Starry Night Inn. I had a really cool experience there, which I've talked about with Rocky on the show before. So we'll bring it up next week when we bring conference director Rocky Smith on. And then, of course, I got the OC Paracon coming up, brought to you by Henry San Miguel from Paranormal Perception. He's the host of that show. That's the first weekend in October. It's a 3-day conference this year. I went last year. It was a blast. So I can only imagine this year is going to be even more so. I sadly won't be able to make it this year in person, but I hope to in another year. And then we have the 14th annual. Was it 14th? I think it's the 14th annual Port Gamble Ghost Conference coming up Veterans Day weekend in November right here in Port Gamble, where I am. So we got a lot going on. I also want to ask everybody listening out there, just send out some good energy to my good friend Nick and his family, please. Energy to help them heal and lift them up. So send that energy out to help them out. Well, tonight we're going to get going on this because I think we're going to talk about a lot of different stuff tonight. I met Joe Teeples at the Port Gamble Ghost Conference years ago. And he's such a great speaker and has such a great perspective on the paranormal and how he investigates. But he's been doing that for over 30 years. And he's the past vice president of the largest and most advanced ghost hunting organization in Seattle called AGHOST. He's authored 20 books ranging from haunted sites to business planning. And so we're going to talk about some of his books tonight and a lot of his experiences with the paranormal. So let's give a big Paranormal Pete Show welcome to Mr. Joe Teeples. Hey, Joe. How's it going?
Nice.
I hope I did you justice.
Good. You did.
All right. And
it's good back in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, you've been out. You've been you're out of the Pacific Northwest. Where are you coming out of tonight?
Tonight I am coming out of Omaha for about 3 years now. I'm in the Air Force, retired here, and this is where my grandchildren are. So we sold the house, sold the cars, got rid of the sheep, and we headed out to Omaha.
Excellent. Well, we sure miss you up here in the Seattle area. But so tell us, you've been investigating the paranormal for over 30 years. How in the world did you get into it 30 years ago?
Sorry?
Oh, did you lose me for a second there? I think the internet goblins are trying to get us here. How in the world did you? Yeah. Well, I was just saying, how in the world? Yeah. Well, I just wanted to ask, how in the world? How in the world?
Let me tell you how I started.
There we go.
There's a time lag here. I started in Michigan, and as a young lad. And I had a farm just outside of Detroit, and little did I know that the haunted. And so I used to go out as a young lad, maybe 8, 9, 10 years old, and there was an old guy that hung out in the barn, and we would play checkers. And so we would play checkers over and over, and he was my invisible friend. My parents kind of thought, well, he's playing with his invisible friend. It must be okay. And so finally, I found an old photograph around the farm, people who built the farm, and it was an 1800 photograph. And I told my mom and dad, and I said, well, that's the guy that I'm playing checkers with. And they looked at each other and they said, well, it can't be because he's been dead for, 100 years or so. And I said, no, they looked at each other and they said, well, he's got an imaginary friend and that's okay. I continued to play, we were playing checkers. I looked at him and I said, my parents told me that you're not real. You can't be real because there's no such thing as ghosts. And he looked at me and he nodded. So there's no such as ghosts? And I said, no, there's not. He got up from his table and he never saw him again. But this is the barrel that we used to play checkers on. And I've been carrying this thing with me, for all time, but this is it. And that's my remark of where this thing started with way back in Michigan, when we had that kind of stuff. And then as time went by, I started doing magic tricks and getting involved in that type of stuff. And there is a company in Michigan, it's a manufacturing company, the only manufacturing company in the world which only makes magic paraphernalia, things for stage shows and for amateur magicians and things. It's in Colon, Michigan, and every year they have a big get together. Every Blackstone Henning, who had a big Broadway production, he would show up. And so I got to mingle with all these guys. And we all started talking about, ghosts and the norm and things like that. I could work it into our act. And I was 14 or 15 or 16. Doug, he was a famous. He traveled around the world doing this kind of stuff. And he said that he went out, and very much like me, he disappeared. I disappeared from the Pacific Northwest. He disappeared. He had gone up to Alaska, and he was performing magic tricks for the Indians up in Alaska. And he did stuff, raising people up off the ground and levitations and stuff. And a lot just they said that he told you guys why. And they all looked at him and said, well, we know that there's magic. We see it every day. There's a great ball that comes up every day across the sky. We see northern lights. We see animals. We see fish. We see a lot of strange stuff up here. So what you're showing us surprised us a bit. With that information, I took it very personally. He said, this is really humbling. And he started looking into real magic, mediumship and things like that. And he got into transcendental meditation, and he left his career, the magic career. He went up to Canada and started transcendental meditation stuff to make the world better and to get it into some vibration. So if people want to know more about that, transcendentalation and Doug and that kind of stuff that he did, it was pretty good that he did. As time goes on, again in 1966, there was a huge UFO flap. All these UFOs were coming around Dexter, Michigan. And what were these things? Very much like the Chinese balloons that the UFO, Chinese balloon that they shot down recently over Lake Ontario. So this was in Dexter, Michigan, and they explained it with stuff. They said, well, it's headlights from cars. It's an atmospheric inversion. It's swamp gas. This is where where swamp gas came
Okay.
from. And we went and explored this. We're seeing, and it's methane, but then we're looking at it, and, well, what's heat lightning? It's got the lightning that's igniting it. And we're looking around, and we're not seeing it. And so that's not working. And that's what, because we're looking at the swamps anyway, and then we're finding, well, there's animal tracks and there's all kinds of stuff. Well, UFOs that are getting like UFOs and cattle mutilations. So we're looking at all this stuff, and then we're tracking Bigfoots, but now we're going through cemeteries, and we're seeing strange stuff in cemeteries. We're seeing green orbs and yellow orbs, things floating around, and spooky feeling and all of that stuff. So I started in scientific thought into this stuff. Somewhere I joined the military, and I went to the 82nd Airborne Division. I enlisted, jumped out of planes and stuff. I went to officer candidate school, and they made me an officer, put me in charge of nuclear weapons and security stuff. Well, if you have a top secret clearance, they don't want people that are running around the cemetery and their ghosts. So I had to put my paranoia aside for a while and hide this. But I did have some interesting effects. There's one place in the Grafenberg training area, it's an artillery piece of the private, and we had artillery. And my guys came up one evening, the sun was setting, and they said, we're going to go visit Hope No Church. And I said, Hope No Church, that's just a bombed out from World War II. And they said, yeah, it's haunted. Because what happened is the Allied bombers would fly over Hope No Church. They'd see it below because it was the tallest thing in the area. And that's where they would turn the bombing run into the Ruhr. Well, one of the bombers inadvertently church women and children, and they're praying, and it just wiped out the church. And they said, if you go there today, sir, you can still hear the women and children scream. So I watched these 10 guys head down the cannon. Okay, I'll be here when you get back. And about 30 minutes, rifles back, and they said, we heard them. We heard, and the women crying and screaming as we got close. Okay, try to get some sleep. No more, we're going to look at it. So the sun came up in the morning. We went down there, and in the ruins of Hope No Church, there's a hole, and as the wind goes through there, guess what sound it makes?
Like, oh.
It's scary at night when you're looking for ghosts. So I said, okay, guys, I'm not sure. I'm not saying this isn't. I think that we just heard the wind. So fast forward a couple of years, and I'm in Nuremberg, and I'm on a security detail working there, and I get this phone call or this radio call, and they smell women up on the warehouse, and they see some people out there, and she wants to there. I'm not getting out of the car. I said, no, you're going wrong out of there. Tell them they can't be there. You can use that to get them out of there. She said, well, and they're worrying.
Oh,
we didn't.
Oh, I think we lost you there for a second. Go. I think we lost you there for a second, Joe. Oh, all right. Can you hear me? The internet goblins are getting us tonight.
Hear me?
I can hear you. Try turning off your camera, the little button down at the bottom of the screen, and see if that'll help. Yeah, I don't know if I'm glitching or what, but try turning your camera off at the bottom of the screen there. And we'll see. We got a couple people checking in saying hello. Yeah. We got Jackie Campbell. She's been a former guest on the show. Hey, Jackie, thanks for watching. And then our good friend Mary checking it out here. Okay, Joe, can you hear me? Oh,
how's that? Is that better? I can hear you.
Okay. So, okay.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes. Okay. I think it's mine or yours internet connection, or the internet goblins are out in force tonight. But so you were telling us about being in Nuremberg on a security detail, and you got a report that there's people were being seen out in this area, and then go from there.
Right. So the people that were out there, they were apparently they were wearing Nazi, and in Germany it's illegal to wear anything with a swastika on. And so I was telling this woman, my MP, is get out of the car, go and rouse them out of there. Sir, I am not getting out of the car. So I sent her with two movies, and they came up there and they said, sure, she's in the car. We're right behind her, but she refuses to get out of the car. And I said, well, do you see anything? He said, yeah, there's some activity over near the warehouse. I said, well, check it out. And so he went over there and he knocked on the window of her car, and he said, come on, we're going to go check this out. And I could hear this all on their phones. And she's saying, hell no, I'm not going out there. I said, those are Nazis. Those are Nazi ghosts from World War. I'm staying right here. So they went in and they pursued these four Nazi ghosts. They went into the building and they vanished. And there's only one way in and one way out. And so we all came back to the headquarters and we wrote the stuff at each other, and we all had top secret clearances, and we agreed this is not going in the official report. We will not talk about this, and no one will say anything about this. And they all said, yes, but they were Nazi ghosts, right? And I said, yeah, just put that in the file next to the Nazi UFOs down in Antarctica. Okay. This is not an official report. So we did that kind of stuff. After that, I kept being drawn back into the paranormal. So finally, I got out of the military and I ended up in Seattle, and that's where I wanted to do more with ghost hunting and investigations, and that's where I met Ross Allison, and I was trying to find a clique that would be doing this stuff. And what I found was a very closed society, very cliquish. People playing the "I have a secret" game. For example, there was a haunted house up at Port Campbell that you would investigate if you know the right people. And it was like, what? This is investigative. It was one of those things where this one group thought, well, we own this place, and we're the only guys that were able to go in there. And it was just amazing to see this. And then I bumped into Ross Allison, who took a totally different point of view. Oh, we'll let anyone come in. We'll teach them what ghosts are. We'll have a class, teach them how to do investigations. And at one point, we had over 150 people in this club, all volunteers, and we were doing 2 or 3 paranormal all around Washington State, Oregon, 2 or 3 investigations, and it goes back to the concept that if no one cares who gets the credit, you can get a lot of good stuff done. And that's when we discovered, we came up with some good EVPs, some good photographs, some good journaling, fine-tuned how we did it. And that's when we said we needed, and so we wrote our pretty, and it was stuff. ridden a couple. I've ridden another one to catch Pacific haunts where these things were. I mean, they were talking about an area in the Georgetown. We'll talk about the Georgetown Castle, which is haunted, and it is pretty haunted. During one of our investigations, one of our team members was she called up there. She was like, "You see, it was pushed." I said, "I didn't see the push, but I saw you land." So we did that. But a castle. I spent a year for a castle in Georgetown. It's a Victorian house. So what I did, I was in and we finally published it, and we bought and say, "Hey, I want in Port Townsend, the Palace Hotel, or is it? Yeah, if you want to, well, here's the address. When you're up there, there's and you've been up there for about 100 years, as far as I can figure." So that's where that book. I wrote another book. This first book of fiction is called Vampires. And when I wrote Vampires, I didn't want it to be like They Twinkle in the Sun, that type of stuff. So I started doing research, and I found out that Seattle has the third largest population of actual vampires in the United States. New Orleans is number one, Atlanta is number two, and Seattle comes in number three, actual blood from other people. It was a fascinating study. And that the Temple of Vamp, which is an offshoot of the Church of Satan, is just south of Seattle. So I became the vampire expert in the Seattle area. So we did a lot of those are just out there that I've written. And as a matter of fact, the vampire book, it's a book of, I had to put a glossary in it, and I found like 8 nightclubs that are vampire friendly on certain nights. That's where all the vampires hang out. And if you go on Wednesday, this other club, that's where they all hang out. So I went and checked them out, and yeah, and it was just a thing that I was looking at. And we did some investigations with a ghost, and one of them talked about all the weird stuff. We did the island of Tilikum. You can go there and you can get a really nice salmon dinner, and the Native Americans put on a really nice show. There's got cool stuff in it. And then after the show, all the tourists leave the island. So we were left there on the island, just our team, about 20 people, and we can investigate all kinds of stuff that was there. And as we were getting ready to do the investigation, and the workers who put on the show, and they had, authentic costumes, and one was a bird's head with a huge big beak, and they call him Big Beak. But that particular spirit was known to haunt the fields and the island and the stomach, your entrails, and that's the legend. They have this wooden beak that they bring in for the show. And as they were getting ready to leave, one of the guys looked at the junior guy, and I said, "What do you mean by a big beak? It's a costume." He said, "Oh no. You have to tie the beak shut with a rope, because if not, hell breaks loose." And they come to the show or come back the next day, and the costumes are shredded. Things have been thrown around there. So you go back there and you tie up big. That's the darker side of the salmon bait up on Tilikum Island. So it was just fascinating. We had the chance to do that, so that was kind of neat. But that brings up off ghost investigation, and we're ending up learning about native folklore and the stuff that's out there. So we took some of the meetings and said, "Well, let's go to the center of the island. And Joe, you can come with us." And I'm an empath, but I'm not a medium. And on the island, we got about halfway there, and all 3 of us just stopped on the trail, and we dark up there. Mediums at the same time looked at me and they said, there's a dark vortex and it's trying to suck us down. We don't want to go there. And so we didn't. We turned around and left. There's some weird stuff that's going on in Telecom Island, and it's just, and it's ancient. It's ancient stuff. So all of that stuff, when the Bigfoot, fairies, I haven't come across a gnome yet, but I'm sure there's one hanging outside my window. I mean, there's all these things that we talk about, legend stuff. And if we always take our eyes off our iPads and our iPhone, I swear to God that with this iPhone device, everyone's looking at this, and Bigfoot could be walking along right on it, and we'd never know it.
Exactly. Oh yeah, we're missing. Nowadays, yeah, we're missing so much around us because of our phone screens. That incredible stories. I love hearing your stories. We're here with special guest Joe Teeples, paranormal investigator and author, and used to be a part of Seattle's team AGHOST, and incredible stories. When we come back, we're going to take a quick station break here on WLTK-DB.com. We're going to take a station break, and when we come back, I wanted to ask Joe about another investigation location that he's done some research on, the Comet Lodge Cemetery in Seattle. I remember you talking about that before, and it's an interesting place. And I just the work you've done there, and it's just it's a neat story. Yeah, so we'll be right back. We're on the Paranormal Pete Show. I'm your host, Pete Orbea, with special guest Joe Teeples tonight. Yep, well, stick around. We'll be right back, guys.
Looking for a holistic solution? Look no further than LimestreetWellness.com. Lime Street Wellness is a full-service Reiki therapy center offering in-person and distant Reiki sessions. Additionally, Lime Street Wellness is committed to helping clients co-create healthier outcomes with hypnosis, QHHT, and intuitive advice. Lime Street Wellness is committed to helping all that are seeking to co-create better health, peace of mind, and greater freedom. Reiki Master Kevin Mackey uses energy medicine, hypnosis, mindfulness, and intuitive guidance to assist in uncovering, understanding, and removing any blocks or energy cords or mental mindsets that may be intruding and causing needless suffering. Visit Lime Street Wellness today at LimestreetWellness.com. That's LimestreetWellness.com.
Welcome back to the Paranormal Pete Show. I'm your host, Pete Orbea, with special guest Joe Teeples. And we got somebody else checking in here, Mariner Blue. You've commented before. Thanks for commenting again. Hey, Pete and Joe, loving the show tonight. Thanks very much for watching and the support in the show. Appreciate it. So it's a little glitchy tonight, but I don't care. Joe's story's getting through, and we're going to keep going because he's got lots of them. So I wanted to ask Joe tonight about the Comet Lodge Cemetery in Seattle. You had done a presentation on it before, and I just found it really fascinating, and kind of the outcome that you came out with that was even better, I think. So give us a little background on the Comet Lodge Cemetery in Seattle.
In one of the neighborhoods of Seattle, near the VA hospital up on the hill, there was an old Indian cemetery originally, and the earlier settlers came along. Our people are dying too. Can we bury them next few years? And at that point, everyone was getting along, and they said, "Sure, that'd be a great idea. It's a great view of the Puget Sound from here. You can see the river." And so, Americans and the settlers both started planting their people there around 1895. as time goes on, the cemetery fell under the control of the Comet Lodge, which was a lodge of people who got together and they took care of the cemetery, and they did a lot of stuff. So the cemetery's been there for a long time. 1895, around 1920, 1930, it started to fall into disuse. Not a lot of lodge members, and then all of a sudden there were no more Comet Lodge members. The lodge kind of disappeared from there to take care of the cemetery, and so weeds started to grow and things like that. And we found interesting aerial photographs of the place, and you can look up Comet Lodge on the web, and you can. That's how I got a lot of the stuff. And you can actually find the that are there. But when you look at it, the cemetery is huge. You know, you've got this great big cemetery in 1920, and then as time goes by, you get to 1950, and it's no longer this big. It's this big. You wonder, what did they do with the people? I mean, they're putting a lot of people there, and now I see in the substitute of this stuff. Well, it turns out that since the lodge wasn't taking care of the people, there was a turf war between the city of Seattle over who had to take care of this thing, because the national law said that someone's got to take care of it. You have to mow it and do the right thing. Well, the city of Seattle said, well, we don't think it's a cemetery, despite the fact that there are hedges over the place. And the county says, well, we don't think it's a cemetery, but Seattle. And so when you look at the city of Seattle, you go down to Denny Park, and you have to realize that where Denny Park is the first cemetery for the city of Seattle. And you'll see ghosts walking around there trying to talk to the spirits in this park. But you have to realize that 40 years ago, the park was 50 feet higher. On the Denny regrade, they washed away all the water and all this turf war. And the employee secretly always wanted to live in a graveyard in a cemetery. He thought it would be cool. He starts telling people, yeah, there's no bodies there. So if you want any of the headstones, you can just come and take them. And people would show and put them in their artwork. They probably just went digging through there. And the city's word was, well, we moved all the bodies. So we said, well, great. Where'd you move them to? I'm pretty sure that some of those bodies, little burlap there that they could move. And then that same city employee who told the guys that he got a bulldozer and pushed all of the markers together in a big pile. And so we don't know who's buried where in that area. We kind of know where the children's area was, because we've gone out there and the mediums and the people, and we've got pictures of orbs floating around there and pictures of little short people. And the mediums are saying those are all the children. So that's where the kids were, 10-year-olds and the 14 years old. One of the people who live, if you go to the Comet Lodge Cemetery and you look at the cemetery and you look, they call it, but if you go there, as a cemetery, you have to be out there when the sun goes down. If it's a park, you can be there all night long. So, you just leave when the sun goes down. The people says, I've got my daughter, there's strange things going on in my house. And my daughter is talking to people outside of her bedroom window. And when I go up there, she says, well, I'm talking to that little girl. The daughter's bedroom window is on the second story. There's nothing to stand on to, but there's a little girl outside her window. Play with me. Come out. This will be fun. And so they're doing this. One of her other boys would and the mom would come by with 30 minutes, maybe an hour later, and she'd look in on him, and his toys are scattered all over the room. hey, Bobby, what the heck are you? You're supposed to be asleep. Bobby's like, I didn't do it. I didn't do it. Well, who did it? In the corner of the room. He did it. He's the one. And so and she'd look over, and of course she didn't do anything. But this would happen night after night. And he said, that's the kid who's coming in, playing with my toys, and he's messing things up. So that's a nutshell. But it's a step. And I found out since I've been here in Omaha, they have a park here where the same thing happened about the same time. So it seems to be a cyclic thing. As we travel around the world and we see different things, we see the same things happening again and again and again. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, and it's interesting. And, you know, who knew if you'd have imaginary friends when you're living on the side of a cemetery? Yeah. Oh, that's good stuff. Good stuff. Well, you mentioned,
Exactly.
yeah. Well, you mentioned orbs, you know, and some other types of evidence, and you've often talked about, you know, don't toss any evidence out. Like, you know, don't toss anything out. And like you said earlier,
Yeah, and I whispered into Ross Allison's ear a lot, and I told him, you're of the world's greatest inspiration, the world's greatest mystery, the fact that there is life.
yes.
Can we prove it? That's the challenge. And when I showed up in Seattle, this is before you and I met, long time ago. Hogs were a little cliquish. They had their own little personal thing.
Yeah.
Well, bring in a technician with some sound equipment and a medium who kind of brought in their boogie woogie boards and crystals and stuff like that. And the mediums were amazingly accurate when we were looking at this stuff. And so it was like, holy cow. And so I would have this discussion with people about orbs. And they said, well, an orb, the way the camera works, light, and you end up this small, and so there's really nothing. I can understand that 90% of the orbs can be dismissed or can be explained away. Very much like 90% can be explained away. But that still leaves you 10%, and that's what we want to concentrate on. And so when we're looking at these orbs, if you haven't, we were looking at the Smith Park one night, and we were allowed to explore there. And while we were there, we were taking cameras, we had pictures, and we got crispy things and some purple vapors and stuff like that. Nothing. And I was looking for the full body apparition of some city leader or something like that. But we got some orbs, and we started looking at these orbs. And the orbs we get easily dismissed, but there was this orb that seemed to call out to me, and it was just strange. So we took it and we blew it up. And inside the orb, we could see what seemed to be the head of a human being. And I thought, wow. So a ghost that's floating around in this bubble trying to talk to us? I don't know. I've never met an orb. Right. So as we started looking at this stuff, I had a historian working like Martha Landis. Who's Martha Landis? He says, well, Martha Landis was the first female mayor of Seattle back in the 30s. And I said, okay. And at that time, we found out that an EVP that came about at the same time, the photograph was taken. And then we had the mediums were saying there's someone here trying to talk to us. And we looked at this stuff and we said, well, at the end, we took a couple hours going through, sounded like, well, maybe that's Bertha Landis. And then, you know, I threw out my arm and I said, okay, so Bertha's in the Smith Tower. Marion Zionchek threw himself out of a window at the thing. I would understand if he was haunting the place, but we didn't see him, but we see the mayor of haunting the Smith Tower, and so the historian says, "Let me do some checking." So they call up, and she's, "Hey, do you know that up on the top floor where the bar is of the Smith Tower, right now there's a belongs an historical thing of what she did, the first female mayor in the United States, the first female mayor to see all that stuff, and they have her personal belongings there." And at that point, you start thinking, maybe this orb is justifiable orb that we're looking at. And that, when all these rays of intelligence start crossing, and you're finding something, looking at some of these words, and some of the EVPs that people have got. It frustrates the heck out of Nancy. I'll come back with a recording, and I'll say, "Listen to this. What do you say?" And I try to look and say, "Got a ghost? Hi, I'm Mordecai Smith, and I'd like to give you the message about where I buried my." So I just tell her, usually, she says, "I heard shh, 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 shh." Other people will listen to it and say, "We've got this stuff." So I started playing with the recorder. I was in my house in Seattle all by myself. I had a brand new recorder, and not all of us can afford a $1,000 recorder. So I had a $30 recorder that I got at Best Buy, and I turned it down so that I wasn't picking up the sound of the tape going around it. And I went back to the office, which is on the other side of the house. And as I'm going back there, I said, "If you had a message, go ahead and talk into the tape recorder, and I'll listen to it later on." And I left, and I was working. 3 minutes later, looking at it, still running. And I said, "Okay, just I'll turn it up," and I rewound it or got ready to play the video. And there's nothing. It's boring. Going one of those. And I'm going to take court. Here we go. And that was it. So I'm like, "Oh my God, someone's watching me work." So I think we have to look at and all of this stuff and bring it all together. Now, I can see that we're running out of time, and I do have one event that I had that I ran into here, and I got to tell you that Omaha is different from the Pacific Northwest. There are no clubs. If you try to get a hunting group together, you'll send messages out and say, "Oh, here, we're going to meet it at Denny's at such and such a time." And no, the next day there's, "Oh yeah, I got busy doing it." So they're still at that point. People don't know what the ghost hunting equipment is. So an EMF detector, that's like the holy grail out here. But they've all heard the stories and like to do this. So I'm doing the same thing here. I'm collecting all the areas and all the locations, and I want to publish that so that people can continue their work, because to find ghosts, number one, there's got to be fish in the water. Number two, you have to know where the fish are in the water. Number three, right bait for the fish in the water. And then when you catch the stuff, you don't share other people. Oh, from Detroit, and he had one presentation that he did. We don't have any ghost conferences here. Okay, the Oregon City Ghost, the Gambles Conference, that kind of stuff. And I like to think that a ghost was when we had our first ghost hunting conference in Townsend, and I think that was the first one in the Pacific Northwest and things like that. Had this guy from Detroit Investigator. Old lady called him up and said, "You gotta come over and look at my house. I've got there's children in my house." So he comes over, he does an investigation, and it's that there are two girls in the house, and this woman can see them from time to time. Couldn't get a photograph, but he could do them a little bit. And he studied the thing for about 2 years, and then he went on to other things because nothing was really happening. Fast forward about 20 years, heading through the neighborhood, what happened with that? So he goes over and he knocks on the door, and expecting that the little old lady is going to answer the door. Well, she had sold the house, and there was some new people there. And so he goes out and he says, well, I'm an investigator, and I was wondering, do you have anything strange that's going on there? And she says, well, yeah, back in the sunroom is the same place where the little old lady was seeing the little girls. She said, there's something strange going on there. I'm going to let my children tell you about it. So they go back into the sunroom. The girls are playing up the window. Can you tell me if you see anything strange? She said, yes, we do. There's a ghost or a phantom or an old shows up, and they point not at the windows but back towards the house. And she comes around the corner and she stands in the doorway and she just sits there and watches us. And the guy's like, okay, can you describe her? And they describe this woman. They describe the same that he worked with. But she's not dead. She has not died.
Weird.
She's not. He starts thinking, thank you very much. And now he needs to do more research because now he's thinking, and he shocked all of us, the 150 in the audience, and he said, maybe, think about this, maybe there are no ghosts. Maybe, just imagine, these two little girls are in their sunroom, they turn around, and they see a lady from 20 years ago standing in the door. Likewise, years ago, this old woman is standing in the doorway looking at two children who won't be there for another 20 years. And he said, that's something to stick in your smoker and try to be. There's, maybe, and then he started talking about quantum physics, and we all groaned, and he said, oh my God, my head hurts,
That's incredible. I mean,
So don't the bummer. I guess that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's a rabbit hole you can go down thinking about that one. Incredible. I mean, well,
It's just amazing. And as you start looking into the Oregon City Ghost Conference, years and years, and when they were just and it was I was speaking, and I went and I talked to all the vendors. The people who were there from MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network. People were there from Hunting Ferries. And every one of them, I stopped and I had when things got slow, I talked to them. And I said, so what do you think about all this stuff? MUFON, it's white shirts, black ties. I swear to God, I had a pencil, in the pocket. He's like, well, we at MUFON do a site investigation. We have observers that go out there. We record things. We measure things. We look at angles. We take photographs. We do a very thorough scientific investigation. We know that UFOs are out there. We had evidence when it's out there. Okay, thank you. So I head on over to the table. What do you guys think about that? And the guys would say, well, you can't catch them. They're up in the sky. Ghosts, there's no evidence for ghosts. But we've got plaster of Bigfoot. Look, there's plaster cast. Look at that. That's a Bigfoot. Feet. That's a Bigfoot. Foot. Okay. We've got fur samples that we caught off trees. We've got sound recordings of Bigfoot scat. And I'm like, I don't want to smell that. Thank you. But we have evidence that Bigfoot believes is there, but nobody else does. Right. Same comment from the fairies. They're the guy, we have pictures of fairies. Okay. So, and the same thing from in the ghost community, we have a tendency to eat our own. We devour our own. Oh, no, we're on getting pictures of orbs. And we all know orbs can be explained away. So that group has no professional courtesy. The other thing is people come and say, well, you're not a professional ghost hunter. And I'm like, oh, professional ghost hunter. There is not a degree. I think Neil McCallum was the last one to get a degree in parapsychology. Nobody else that I know of has a degree in parapsychology anymore. They offered it. I think Neil got his, but none of us. So he's like, well, Joe Teeples. Well, just get out there, dress warmly, go out there and hang out in the cemetery for a couple nights, and see what happens. And I'll tell you, a lot of people go out and hang out in buildings, and then when they come home, because one of the things that I used to teach OSHA safety, and I said, when you come home after a ghost investigation, take a shower. Oh no, I'm usually so tired, I just fall right in bed. So all those bacteria that have been there for hundreds of years are clinging to your back. To wonder why you can't shake that cold. It's like, yeah. So anyway, that's what I'm saying for investigations. I said, in the Pacific Northwest, you are so blessed who are like-minded information. It wasn't walk into a place and, hi, I'm from a ghost, and people would say, we have no use for you. I said, you're not a group, and we're professionals. I'm like, okay, well, thank you very much. Now that I'm in Omaha, the same thing. Hey, what do you think? So it's an ongoing thing. So enjoy the conferences. Go to the conferences when you can. If you don't see people, and talk to him. Yeah, he's a nice guy, and I think he'll buy you a cup of coffee.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I love your point about each kind of different field of research, the UFOs, cryptids, elemental fairies, and ghosts. We all do kind of eat our own stuff and believe in our own stuff. And I like, that's something that I think everybody could have.
That way back when, back then we didn't running around. We didn't have all these ghost shows. There were none. I mean, we were it. If you want to learn about ghosts, you had to go to the books.
Right. Yeah, I think it's important. It's a good reminder for everybody out there to be mindful of that. And no matter if you're into studying cryptids or whatever it is, to be open and don't throw away your evidence. That's another great point I think that everyone should take from tonight. And one great thing I learned from Michael White was that evidence does not equal proof. What we're all after is proof, but we keep collecting evidence. And so we should keep collecting evidence, because maybe someday we'll get that proof. What do you think?
So, and the other thing that happened is when a ghost hunting organization comes into existence and they work really hard, but they're being picked at from all the other clubs in the area, eventually they go away. And there is no repository information. When I got involved in the 60s and 70s, there were no less than 7 UFO groups. Today, there's only one. They're the survivor. You can absorb this file. So all that information is lost on you. As a matter of fact, there was a full body apparition that one of the groups that was working in Seattle, and they got that film. And that group she's so upset, she's showing all the files. It's a full body apparition in video, and the thing was walking on the ceiling in the castle in the Georgetown Castle, and it was, oh my God, and came around the corner. I'm changing batteries on my directly at me, and then it out of the room. She had this on film. We looked at it. I said, that's amazing. Yeah. And then 3 weeks later, I've had it with these people. I'm out of the ghost hunting business. And she folded up shop. I said, what'd you do with all the stuff? I says, I just erased it all. It's gone.
Oh
My God.
Oh my goodness. That's wow. That is crazy.
Is gone.
Yeah, we're at that time of the show. We're at the end here. Joe, I want to thank you so much. I'm glad we could reconnect and get you on the show here. And I wish you success down there in opening people's minds, maybe one at a time. But, I hope that you keep looking and keep searching and doing what you do. You've got great advice and great stories, and I'd love to have you back on the show later on this year if you'll come back. And there's a lot more we could talk about. And I just want to thank you for coming on tonight, and thank you to the audience for watching tonight. And again, we're on WLTK-DB.com. This will be you can catch us on YouTube. There'll be a replay on there that you can recording that you can watch, or you can check out the audio version on our website. Joe, any last words?
Break Cornhuskers out here, people. Tough Bible Belt kind of people. And I'd love to come back to your show and chat with you again. I miss you guys in the Pacific.
Yeah, we certainly miss you, Joe, and we'll definitely have you back on. You're such a great person in the field here and just in general anyways. But I wish you the very best, and I wish everybody a good rest of this week. Be sure to take time each day to be present. Be with the ones you're with. Be there in the moment. Quit thinking about yesterday. Quit worrying about what's coming up tomorrow. But take a minute each day to be there with the people you're with, or just be present. And I wish you all a great week from WLTK-DB.com. I'm your host, Peter Bay of the Paranormal Pete Show, with very special guest, Joe Teeples. Take care, everybody.
The truth is here and now on WLTK-DB Talk Radio at WLTK-DB.com.
you.